Good evening and welcome to the Village of Westmont Committee of the Whole meeting for February 2nd, 2012. I'd like to begin by having our clerk take the roll call, please.
Mayor Ron?
Here.
The clerk's here. Trustee Emery is absent tonight. Trustee Fleming?
Here.
Trustee Klebanow? Here. Trustee Nero?
Here.
Trustee Scott?
Here.
Trustee Seneca?
Here.
Manager Searle?
Here.
Attorney Zemanek?
Here.
Public Works Director May? Here. Police Chief Mulhern?
Here.
Deputy Fire Chief Weiss?
Here.
Acting Finance Director Parker?
Here.
Deputy Police Chief Gunther?
Here.
And Village Planner Ziegler.
Very good. Thank you. We join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item before us this evening are the minutes of the January 12th Committee of the Whole meeting and January 16th Village Board meeting and a special combined comprehensive plan meeting that was held on September 28th. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, moving along, we have one open forum request before us this evening, and that's from Mr. Bill Califoot at 254 North Wilmette.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
My name is Bill Califoot, and my wife Jean Heasley is here. We operate our businesses and own the building at 205 North Cass Avenue, right here in downtown. I'm here to, I know I'm probably a day late and a dollar short on this issue, and also it's probably from talking to Shannon earlier this week and also a few of you today, it's probably a moot point also, but I still felt it was important that I came in and put my concerns on record for the special use permit that was approved for 203 North Cass Avenue at the last meeting. When we originally received the public notice for a special use permit for a music school at that location, we kind of thought, that'd be a good location for that type of use for a music school, being that that building isn't really that set up or conducive for retail. So we kind of thought that would be a nice use of that building, and we're kind of happy to hear that something was coming into it. We had a scheduling conflict at that time for the zoning meeting and knew we were not going to be able to make it to that meeting to hear their petition and stuff. And I knew from at least past following other projects and stuff like that through the village that, and with timelines in terms of agenda, scheduling, and things like that, that this meeting would be the meeting that they would be at to present it to the board. We were surprised to see that at the zoning meeting that it really was more of a recording studio was a big part of their presentation. They really got into the soundproofing of the building and all that stuff because that is a huge concern with a recording studio. And then to see that they were right back the following day at the Committee of the Whole meeting, didn't give us a chance to voice the concerns. By the time we even saw the tape, they had already been approved. A couple of our concerns is, one is obviously the noise. And I know they went into great detail with that. I think there was something that was either misrepresented or misunderstood in some of them meetings. I think it was Trustee Emery that asked the petitioner, what's behind the building? And since this building sits on the corner of Norfolk and Cass, the address front of the building is Cass Avenue. The main entrance and the door is actually on Norfolk. So the answer that the petitioner gave was, well, my garage, and then next to that is, the pizza place garage. When in actuality, if you take Norfolk as the front of the building, the back of that building is my building, and I am literally less than 4 feet from their exterior wall. My office is set up where most of our offices and our reception and everything is on the south side of our building. So I am literally sitting 6 feet from their exterior wall. Granted, they are a brick exterior. My building was built in the 20s and is barely wood. Okay, so it became a concern of ours when the petitioners said, well, by the time I get to my car 10 to 15 feet from the building, you won't hear any noise, and I'm 6 feet away. So that was one of our big concerns. The other concern that we have is a lot of work a few years ago and a lot of time was spent by myself, other members of the Downtown Business Alliance, along with a few of the trustees and along with staff to re-look at the allowable uses and permitted uses in the B1 district. Line 110 of that document states that a recording studio is not allowed in the B1 zoning, not even as a special use or anything. We had long discussions of that, and we decided to leave that on the list, even though it wasn't, because it was an important thing because of sound. And in the downtown business district, with your 0 lot lines, we just felt as a group that use and the proximity of the buildings just would not work. My understanding of that was that recording studio as your main business or as a ancillary part of your business or a small little thing, whatever. Recording studio is a recording studio no matter what part of the business it is, and I didn't think that it would be allowed in the B1 zoning. I guess, in closing then, I have one question that John can probably answer is that currently this project may not be going through at this day, but we don't know if next week the seller comes back and says, you know what, my sale contract went belly up, you want to come back in and lease? How does that work with a special use permit that has been issued in terms of, is it null and void now, or if this comes back up in a week, a month, 2 months from now, is it still on the board that he can just walk in and do it, or does he have to go through the whole process again?
The special use has to be commenced within 90 days from when the ordinance was passed by the village board. If it's not commenced within that time period, it's void.
Okay, commence meaning he has to be moved in and working as that within the 90 days.
Correct.
Okay.
John,
Okay.
given the knowledge that, or the belief that, he no longer is going to have access to that building, could we put it back on the agenda and repeal it?
There could be a motion for reconsideration made. I know you touched on whether this is a principal use, accessory use. I know the way it was presented, at least initially, was that this is a school, we've got some incidental retail use, and we've got a recording studio. And I think when staff processed this, they viewed the recording studio as ancillary to the primary use of a music school. The applicant did talk about how they bring students in, try and form bands, they're good, they record them, etc., and that they'd soundproof things. So certainly it's within the staff discretion, the board discretion to determine what's a principal use and what's a permissible accessory use. We don't have a hard, fast rule saying it's got to be no more than X percent, but typically we look at about 25% of the overall use. I don't think we got into percentages with this particular applicant.
Right, but so, and I don't know the law and municipal law interpretation and all that stuff of it, but if it's stated that a recording studio is a recording studio, if it's the main part of your business or a small part of your business or a minute part of your business, a recording studio is a recording studio. Should it be allowed in the B1 zoning district if that's on our B1 as not being allowed?
I'll give you an analogy. We specifically address, while we can't address every single situation, the code does address manufacturing of goods. Again, not allowed in the B1 district, but if it's an accessory use to goods that are sold on the premises, we allow limited manufacturing. And again, the village has performance standards. There are decibel measures that can be taken from outside of the property, and if a use such as manufacturing or a recording studio violates the performance standards, it can be shut down. And that's the protections that surrounding property owners have.
Okay, okay. Because one of the it's a tough situation because the soundproofing they're doing is very extensive. And will that work so you can't hear any of the sound outside that building? Nobody knows until they're done and up and running. Then it's even harder to make those changes and those kinds of things, and that's what, with the proximity of those buildings, that's what the discussion was, to really, mainly because of that reason. So just trying to think in my head if I had other stuff, but no, I think that's really about it. Oh, the only other thing was, I understand with legally and all that kind of stuff, you're within bounds to have that the next day of the meeting and stuff like that. And I know that we had talks with Fred at that time, along with the downtown business and stuff, about trying to open up that process a little easier for business owners. I think our intention was for those that in the downtown business district that are allowable uses but still need to have the board approval. Those were the kinds of things and the kinds of businesses that I think we had in mind of, oh, go ahead and rush those through. There's no problem with them. They're allowed. They can be there. I think when you get into special use, especially with our situation here, we couldn't make that meeting. Didn't know it would be on the agenda for the next day, so we have no time to voice it. And there may be other people in that situation also, so something to consider down the line. But I appreciate you allowing me a little more than my 3 minutes on the issue and stuff, and thank you.
Thank you for coming in. We appreciate your input, and we will handle it as best we can.
I know you will.
At the present time, as you're well aware, there are some difficulties with that even going through, so perhaps it won't become a problem. We can't guarantee that, but we'll do all we can to control it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the only open forum request. Moving right along, reports to Mayor. It says our agenda includes police staffing changes. That's going to be discussed on Monday evening. I have nothing else to add except I'm glad there's not 15 to 20 inches of snow on the ground outside tonight that we had to deal with a year ago. Thank you. Next is our village clerk.
I just want to mention to everyone, in the next 2 months, you will be getting a water bill that is going to be much higher than you've seen. I got mine. Steve got his. I'm sure Sue got hers. Lee got his. They've all gone up at least $20 to $30. This is not the village. This is what we're paying to get water from Lake Michigan now. So the increase is that. It's not the village trying to get more money from you for water. It's the costs they have assessed us for getting water from Lake Michigan. So just be prepared. It's coming, and there's nothing we can do about it. And we all have to pay it, and we all already got our bills, some of us anyway.
When you use the word "they," who are you referring to?
The resident, we all have to pay
No,
the increase.
but the reason for the increase?
Is
The city of Chicago?
Yeah.
Is it DuPage Water Commission, or is it strictly?
Well, it came
city?
from the city of Chicago, but it's going through the Water
Right.
Commission.
It started really with the Water Commission with some issues that they had, and then, as probably most people are aware, just from the media recently, the city has now come out with a plan that's very aggressive in terms of increasing the water rates.
Okay.
So it's a combination, but certainly the city is driving a lot of the rates that we're
And
going
it's
to see
not
in
the
the
end.
future.
No, it isn't.
We're going to see more of these.
Right.
So I want to mention that, just so everybody isn't shocked when they get it. We're all getting it, so it's across the board. Sue, it's good to see you here tonight.
you.
In spite of your horrible,
You have to show me how to sign thank you to Rhett.
in spite of your horrible shoulder injury.
It's fine. It's fine.
And that's all I have tonight, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Village Attorney John Zemanek.
I just have a case law update. The Illinois Attorney General recently issued a written opinion that states that schools have to comply with local zoning regulations unless those regulations would frustrate the underlying purpose of operating a school. And you may have read in the newspaper the fight between College of DuPage and Glen Ellen over the college wanting to install a new sign that didn't meet the zoning regulations for signs, got into a protracted legal battle. The village ended up winning at the trial court level. I don't know if it's being appealed or not, but it was interesting that on the heels of that, the Attorney General chimed in to try and clarify some existing case law that conflicted and said, yes, schools must comply with zoning ordinances. It's never been a problem in this community, as far as I know, or not much of one, but I know in other communities that fight has gone on sometimes where schools think they're not only exempt from the building code, which they are, because they have their own school building code, but they claim they're exempt from zoning ordinances, and it appears that they are not.
Interesting.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Village Manager Ron Searle.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. I wanted to request an executive session for potential litigation, personnel, and review of executive session minutes following the meeting. And then I wanted to just remind the public that the Chamber is currently soliciting applications for the 2011 Westmont Citizen of the Year. The deadline for that is noon, February 17th. So if you have an interest in submitting somebody's name, please do so. I know these applications are available online at our website, as well as several locations, community buildings throughout the village. And then I wanted to mention, just don't want to go into a lot of detail about it, but as some people may know, we did approve to put on the ballot on March 20th a question about electrical aggregation. Many communities are doing that, and I just want to mention it tonight because we're going to have some more information forthcoming on our website and various sources of information about this. We're not advocating it. We'll try to provide information about what it means to residents if you vote in favor of it. This is an opportunity that the state created a few years ago to allow communities to aggregate and purchase electricity in bulk for their residents and take advantage of lower prices as a result of that. So I just want to mention that this evening. That will be on the ballot that March 20th, and we'll be having some more information coming forward about it. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Trustee items. We'll start with Trustee Seneca.
Thank you. Wanted to remind everyone tomorrow night is the annual Boosters Spaghetti Dinner at the high school. So take the family out, have a great spaghetti dinner, and then go see the basketball game and watch the Sentinels win. And then I just wanted to thank everybody for the get well wishes. I'm fine. I'm on the mend. It's all good. Got to get back to my golf game, and I've got to get on my cruise on March 18th. So this will be done fast. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Scott.
Nothing this evening, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Nero.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Trustee Fleming.
The only thing I've got is on February 13th, which is Monday the 13th, at 6 p.m., we'll be having a Public Works Committee meeting at the Water Department. And that's all I have.
On Monday.
On Monday the 13th, yes. We decided the 14th, Valentine's Day, wouldn't be a good day.
Thank you. Moving right along, new business.
Pat.
Oops, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I got ahead of myself, sorry.
That's okay. I have a question. Are we starting tomorrow night with the Junior Police Academy?
Brief answer, no. In talking it over with the volunteers, we would like to try something different this year and have it in the summertime, not to compete against the kids' summer camp, which we participate with the fire department, but maybe kind of like in conjunction with that. We saw enrollment going down and down and down, and there's always a conflict this time of year with basketball, with the snow programs. And so we thought this year, and just, I apologize, it hasn't been taken out of the calendar, but we've been telling people as they call, we're going to try to push it back to June. And then we're looking for the Business Citizens Police Academy sometime in May. And the Adult Citizens Police Academy is still on track for beginning of March.
Okay, and I think we're going to be having the safety camp like June, July,
Yes.
August, so we'll have to make sure it doesn't.
Yeah, no, we're going to coordinate our time so it would not conflict, because we do participate in conjunction with the fire department at that. So it'll be around those times, and we will make sure we do not conflict.
It might be nice for the kids to have something to do in the summer, too.
We want to try to give it a try and see what happens.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. I just want to make sure because I
Thank you.
saw it on the calendar.
Thank you.
So, and then I did notice that they had handed out, Leslie had handed out a while ago, and I happened to save it, the Relay for Life. I'm surprised she's not here. But it's Wednesday, February 8th is their kickoff from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Doubletree Guest Suites and Conference Center. 2111 Butterfield Road in Downers. This is a combined kickoff with Downers and Woodridge and Relay for Life of Westmont. So it's February 8th, and maybe Monday we can see if maybe she's available if she wants to come in and say a little something. If not, we can remind people about the 8th.
Absolutely.
Thank you, and that's all I have.
Thanks, Pat. New business. Liquor license fee waiver and request to serve liquor on village property at the Westmont Center, 1 South Gas. Board to consider an ordinance approving the following for the semi-annual Westmont Chamber of Commerce open house. A, waiving the special event liquor fee, and B, granting a request to serve alcohol on village property, specifically Westmont Center.
Hello. I'm Pam Wagner. I am a board member with the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm on the chair of the membership committee. And Larry asked me to come in tonight because he couldn't make it. But we are requesting a waiver, or we're requesting to serve beer and wine at our open house, which we have twice a year. February 29th is our first one, and September 19th is our second. And both of them will be from 5 to 7 at night. And it's just beer and wine that we would be serving. And we are also requesting a waiver of any fees associated with a temporary permit for the two.
Okay, it's pretty routine.
There's been no problem approving that in the past.
We've had no problems. We actually, we invite all of the board members to come out, and we hope you all can make it.
Yeah.
Very good. I don't see any problem with that. Any questions from board members?
No.
Comments?
It's always a good event.
Thank you.
Chamber does an excellent job, and we want to do all we can to help.
They do, and they've never had problems.
Thank you. Next item, 137 East 56, zoning code variances. Board to consider variant ordinances approving requests for the following zoning code variances. A, variance to allow a covered front porch/foyer for a non-conforming front yard setback. And B, variance to allow a rear addition with a non-conforming side yard setback. Give us your name and address first.
I'm the architect.
Yes.
My name is Shai Hong Guo from Henry Guo and Associates
Okay.
in Westmont.
I'm Han Kui Chen, the owner of the property at 137 East 53rd Street.
Okay. Is there any comments you'd like to make?
What we're asking is very simple. We already made a presentation here about 1 month ago. Basically, we're asking for two variations. One is in the front. As you can see, a lot of houses in that area, you walk out the front door, you just walk onto the concrete patio without a cover porch. So in winter, it could become, with ice and the snow, it could become very dangerous with the parking garage door like 3 feet lower than the entrance. So we're proposed to have a covered porch, mainly in the front. But it's within the 35 feet front setback. So it's a heart shape we try to, change. The second one is because of the families adding members, they're having 3 kids now. So they want to have an addition in the back. With the way how the existing building works, it's going to make a lot of sense if we line up the addition with the side of the building. It's right now the side of the building is 5.5 feet from the lot line. The zoning requirement now is 6 feet. So we're just asking for half a foot of variance.
Okay.
So that's the 2 variances we're applying.
Okay, thank you. Questions from board members regarding our request?
So basically, if I'm reading this right, there's no further encroachments, it's just because they've already encroached, is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
okay.
right. You're right. because the old zoning code, when this house was built, was 25 feet
Right.
in the front, 5 feet
Right.
on the side. So because of the change of the zoning code, that's why we have to apply for the variance.
Yeah, I love those changes. Okay, and I can see you gave a nice layout of the place, so that's, I don't see any problems that I myself has. Did any neighbors?
No one objected to this at planning and zoning, and there was testimony that the 25-foot proposed setback is pretty consistent with other houses in the immediate area.
I drive by there a lot, so I didn't think there was, but, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we thank you for coming in, and this will be on our agenda for consideration on Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Next item. Review curfew ordinance, section 58-156(1). Or to discuss revising section 58-56(B1) to permit additional persons to accompany a minor after curfew hours. Our police chief, Tom Mulhern.
Thank you, Mayor. The village received a letter, an email from a resident who was concerned that after reviewing the ordinance, that there was a possibility that the way the restrictions we put in there when we enacted the ordinance, that he, being a grandparent, would actually be in violation of the ordinance if he was escorting his grandchild out after a curfew, either home or from a basketball game, is what the example they gave. And in researching it, it could be construed that way. And reviewing this with my staff, the officers have the discretion at the time to not make an arrest and would take this all into consideration. However, we thought also not to put the officers at jeopardy. Maybe we should ask the board to revise this or at least revisit this issue. A couple options our staff has suggested, and I spoke with Anne Marie, our assistant village attorney, on this as well, is that we currently have it that has to be a parent or legal guardian that is accompanying the child, and that's the problem, and that's what causes the problem. We suggested several options in our board action sheet, and I'll read them, and those could be a responsible family member who is 21 years age or older, a responsible adult who is 21 years of age or older, a responsible adult who's either 25 years of age or older. We felt we wanted to give the board an option. If you didn't feel that 21 was an appropriate age, then maybe 25. A little bit older, a little bit more responsible, a little bit more common sense might come into play. A responsible family member who's over 25. And this is not a definition, and this is not a rule. It's more used as a guideline for the officers when we ask what is a responsible adult or what's a responsible family member. And some of the guidelines the officers would use, and this is not all inclusive, and again, this is not a hard, fast rule, but this is giving them some kind of guidance as to what they would use when making their decision. Would be a responsible should be defined as not involved in a gang, with no criminal history or any kind of offense against a child or with a child victim, and not possessing any mental health issue which would promote immoral or unsafe or unethical actions. And so we just wanted to bring this to the board's attention. We did receive a request to revisit this, and staff felt that it was a valid request and wished to bring it for the board for your discussion.
Questions, comments?
I'm just looking at this between the ages of the 21 and 25, trying to figure out why the difference is. What's the difference between an adult who's 21 years of age and then the responsible adult who's 25, or are we supposed to pick one of those because of the age?
Your options. We wanted to give you some options. If you felt, the purpose we're trying to avoid is a 18-year-old being responsible for a 16 or a 13-year-old who are out there causing trouble. Do you feel that 18 and 19 is reasonable enough? At what age does the board feel is reasonable or responsible? We felt, if you go with 21 years of age, we're comfortable with that, or would the board feel that, that's really not enough? And in this case, it was a grandparent. We wanted to stay away from family definitions because that could become hard to manage. So that's why we wanted to go with an age. 21. These are just discussion points. They're nothing hard set. If the board feels 21 is fine, we're comfortable with that. Or if you feel that it should be someone who's a little bit older, a little bit more mature, to guarantee that the child's not out doing anything wrong, that's a consideration as well.
I think one of the things I was missing when I was reading this before, and I thought of it, because I just got an email from someone who questioned the very thing, and then all of a sudden I see it was on the agenda, so I had reread the ordinance and said, but we're discussing to make it better, hopefully, but, and right then I just keep reading, but shouldn't we be saying something about with permission of the parents? That just kind of bothered me, that a 16-year-old could come into somebody who happens to be 21 or 25 and be going out with them, and there's no permission from the parents as far as we know, but I don't know how you could lock in on that, but that...
The officers would try to verify that with the parent.
Yeah, the responsible adult, I did a quick kind of Google search of some other towns and found a very consistent definition of responsible adult, which is different than what's proposed here, but it's responsible adult means a parent, guardian, or other adult specifically authorized by law or authorized by a parent or guardian to have custody or control of a minor.
Okay.
So it goes to that point.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for,
authorized.
something about, for permission, that's what I was...
Now that says adult, it doesn't say family member. Certainly, the village could be more strict and say it has to be a family member. It has to be a family member over 25, for example. Go ahead. What I'm, I guess, not quite confident in is the definition of responsible. These other ordinances don't define what responsible is. They just say responsible adult. Here it's limited by way of exclusion. You're excluded if you are involved in a gang. You're excluded if you have mental illness, et cetera. I guess it kind of comes to a verification issue, is simply because someone has gang colors. Obviously, that's indicia that they're involved in a gang.
We would, by where we go, consider somebody a gang member, someone who's entered in the state police database as a gang member, and in order to do so, we have certain criteria we have to meet. They have to be self-admitted. There's about 5 sets of criteria that we have to meet before we can give them that designation. So that's what we would consider a gang member, not someone who
It would have to be self-admitted.
To be into the state police database, yes, you have to be either self-admitted and or tattoos. There's about a set of 5 or 6 set of criteria, but self-admission is one of them. It's not the only one.
What if they're flashing signs?
That could be, again, it depends on all. That's what we would go by. We would not just say, oh, we think this person's a gang member. We would go and check in the state's database to see, are they registered as a gang member, whether by Westmont or anywhere in the state of Illinois. If so, that's what we would use.
This responsible thing could just keep adding on and on and on. We're not talking about alcohol here. We're not talking about drugs here. I mean, where does it end?
Yeah.
We're just looking for a guideline or...
Not that that it shouldn't be looked at, but the object is, we'll do what if, and keep changing it when I don't know if, it's everything that's illegal ends up being in there pretty soon.
I think you could leave that to the officer's discretion as well. We're just trying to get, for the public as a talking point. Here you're able to see what we mean by responsible and also get the board and John's opinion as to what responsible is. I don't want to put down on a hard and fast in the ordinance what responsible means because, again, we'll be back in front of you changing it.
For me, I think in the company of a responsible 21-year-old is fine. The police officer can certainly apply the discretion and draw the conclusion whether or not the person is responsible. I mean, 10 seconds into their conversation, they're going to have a really good idea what's going on here.
Exactly.
So I have responsible 21-year-old member, discretion,
And I know this was very important to Trustee Emery, and I know this was the restriction why she put in there for the, and for the purposes which we agree, purposes of having, you don't have a 19-year-old watching an 18-year-old and they're both out in trouble. It's not going to fit, and that's what we're trying to address with our original ordinance.
Chief, what happens if you've got an officer who then says, okay, we're going to call the parent and verify it?
We do.
But you might have irresponsible parents out there.
Yeah.
And we do.
And that comes to the other part of the ordinance that the parents, there's also parental responsibility further down in the ordinance would address it that way. If this is the second or third time, we can address it with the parent. Our officers do check, to make sure that, if someone were to say, I'm coming back from a high school game, we check to see, was there a high school game or were they coming from work? Yeah. They do check, they do verify with the parent. One other thing I'd like to admit, I'm not totally comfortable with restricting it to be a family member. I could be giving my next-door neighbor permission to take my kids out for the night, and they aren't a family member, so now we're back to it again. I think getting that restrictive could cause us a problem. We just gave it for options and for discussion, but my recommendation would be for a 21-year-old adult.
Discretion of the officer.
Can you give us an example of what your guys are finding on the street running into this situation? What kind of person are these kids with?
Usually they're with other kids. Yeah, it hasn't been so much they're with the 21-year-old. They're just with their other kids, and they're a bunch of 16, 17-year-olds out amongst themselves. Very rarely do you have the adult component in there. But we wanted to address it just in case it does show up.
Yeah.
And again, our officers do, try to verify where they're coming from, where they're going. They do have the discretion is theirs as well too. Is that, you know what, you fit the 5 parameters for being a violator. However, we're taking you home and turning you over to parents and giving you a verbal warning this time, and not so much a village ordinance citation. It's up to the officer. And they are the better judges because they're there at the time. They see the full circumstances. They're aware of what's going on. This could be the person that we've had for the 15th time, or this is the very first person who's a honor roll student just made an honest mistake. They take that all into their decision-making process.
Yeah, I think this parent had trouble because of the sports. A lot of the sports activities will put the kids beyond the curfew time, and that's what her concern was on who actually had to be there to help them get home and stuff.
There is an exception, I believe there's an exemption or exception to our ordinance that if they're coming from a high school event, that they're exempt.
Yes.
So they would be okay if they were
Have a
stopped.
dance or something.
Yeah, same thing from coming from work, coming from a church-related or,
Just activities and all
right.
that stuff, yeah.
So they could be driving themselves, coming from a school basketball game that they were participating in and not being
As long as they
invited.
went straight home.
Yes.
Yes, and that's where the rub comes in. We've had it out there too that it's now it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm coming home from the basketball game. Well, the basketball game ended at 9 o'clock at night. I'm still coming home from the basketball game. I'm just taking a more varied route.
But is there well, I was going to say that the one student might be dropping off a couple of students, so it may not look like that they're on their way home, but.
It could be, and again, our times are 10 o'clock. It's more restricted than 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I mean, that's all taken, and our officers do use very good discretion. I mean, if it's 9:05 and I'm coming home from the basketball game because there's snow or rain or fog, they take that all into consideration compared to, it's, 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm coming home from the basketball game.
Did I see that on our channels that we are putting a new ordinance time on there, weren't we? I was thumbing through one time, I was trying to remember, did we get these programmed now to go on our channel 6 and 16?
They're up there now. The current times are up there. We're still waiting for this modification. Send the letters out to the schools as well, too. But it is up on Channel 6. Detective Gomorrasek spoke to District 201 students, and the word's gotten around, and all the parents, PTAs or PTOs and
I didn't have a
everything.
chance to compare it, but I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, on comes the new mayor in Chicago, and he's doing there, it is now such and such a time, do you know where your children is? Which is what I was raised with back then, do you know where your kids are? So I know Chicago is pushing it. I didn't know what their time span, I didn't catch it in time to write down what their time span is, if it's the same as ours.
Yeah, we model ours after theirs.
That's what I was thinking, if we
Right.
modeled it, then they're advertising for us, and we could just ask them to throw in, and Westmont.
Well, either the mayor could make a spot. We can
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
put them up there every night.
Yeah.
So Tom, circling back to the definition of responsible, I want to make sure that we don't have an ALCU lawsuit.
Right.
ACLU.
ACLU, yes.
Challenging this that's costly to the village. So it seems like there's a way when we say the responsible adult is not involved in a gang, that we've got some established criteria, and maybe we can flush that out a little bit more. No criminal history of any kind for offense against a child or with a child victim.
Oh, that's good.
Again, that's something that you could pull up immediately
Yes.
on the police squad computer.
Criminal history is access in the spot, yes.
And then not possessing any mental health issues which would promote immoral or unsafe or unethical actions.
I would suggest we strike that.
I would suggest we strike that also.
And then if you want to include the definition that you had, I'm comfortable with that as well.
That they have to have if it's an adult, that they would have to have permission of the parent or legal guardian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
Good. Excellent.
Anything else?
No, Mayor, that was all.
Any further questions?
Not from me.
Our police department does an excellent job.
Thank you.
As I say all the time, our fire and police are second to none in the area. And the job that the PD has to do handling situations like this is very, very difficult at times.
We have a very good group of men and women on the police department and the fire department as well. I agree with your statement 100%. We have,
The needs
if
get-
not the best police and fire in the county.
The needs get greater and greater every year, so we compliment you and your department on the fine job that you continue to do.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Can I make one more comment or question? This is, would you like this on the agenda for Monday for a vote? Provided I can get
Yeah.
a revision to you, or do you want to put it off one more set of meetings?
May as well get it on there if we've,
Let's do it.
I know
if you have
trustee-
time to do it.
Yeah, I do. Trustee Emery was sort of the champion of this
Right.
originally. She's not here tonight.
We can discuss it when,
Is she going to be
Yeah,
here
we
on
can-
Monday?
I don't know.
Do we
We can
know?
discuss it and.
Okay. Just,
If she's not, we can always postpone it. If she's not here Monday, we can postpone it then and
Yeah.
you
give
may
her a
not care,
chance.
but in fairness to her, she brought it up.
Yeah.
She was pretty
That's good.
passionate about it.
It's cool.
Very good. Next item. Hiring freeze. Board to consider motion to temporarily lift the hiring freeze for the sole purpose of hiring 2 full-time police officers filling current vacancies.
The board had asked the police department to put together a staffing study, which was presented at the January 19th Public Safety Committee. And the direction that came out of that was that we'd like to push forward with the idea of increasing the number of investigative detectives that we have through the POP program, the problem-oriented policing. So in order to do that, we need to lift the hiring freeze to hire 2 new officers because we will anticipate, people moving up into those spots. And we were asked to, at the committee meeting, to put that on the very next agenda for consideration. And we will be taking steps to make sure that, proper budgetary amounts are reflected in the budget that we're preparing for the board's consideration.
Questions, comments? Thank you. Moving right along, finance ordinance number 19.
Waive the reading?
Request to waive the reading. Purchase orders. Questions on purchase orders?
I have just a question on the calendar amounts. I'm presuming this price, again, is strictly printing. And if so, I kind of would like an idea of, what they charged us for the amount on the printing, if it was 1,000, how many? It doesn't have to be now, just at some point. we
You're
can
talking
know.
about on the purchase order?
On the purchase orders.
Yeah, that would not be printing, that would be production.
Okay, yeah, so that's,
There'd be a different vendor for printing.
okay, yeah, that's right, that's Larry. So this is, but his whole time, I didn't look at the vendors, but this is his whole time and stuff. This is what we budget for, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay, because it didn't say budgeted, that's why, another reason I was questioning, it didn't say budgeted. So, it looked like the same amount then that was, but the printing for some reason I had in the back of my mind. We didn't, I have no idea how many we ordered, but I know we always get an overrun.
We do. Have been, arguing not to pay those for the past few years.
Oh, you don't have to look now, later on.
I
I'm glad
can
it's-
find out, I believe it is properly budgeted amount, do you know? Yes, I'm getting
Yeah,
a
okay.
nod yes
Great.
from the finance director.
Thank you very much. That's all I had.
Anything else on purchase order? With that being said, unless there's something else to come before the board, at this time, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session as requested by the manager regarding pending litigation, personnel, and executive session meetings.
So move, Scott.
Second, Seneca?
Roll call.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow?
Yes.
Trustee Seneca?
Yes.
Trustee Nero?
Yes.
Trustee Fleming?
Yes.
Thank you for attending, and we are now adjourned to executive session.